Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and One Night. Now, when it was the 421st night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the sheikh continued, So if any one enlarge in praise of a slave girl, and wish to enhance her value by the mention of her beauties, he likeneth her to a youth, because of the illustrious qualities that belong to the male, even as saith the poet. Boy-like of backside in the deed of kind, she sways as sways the wander-like boughs a wind. And youth, then, were not better and fairer than girls, why should these be likened to them? And know also, Almighty Allah preserve thee, that a youth is easy to be led, adapting himself to every reed, pleasant of converse and manners, inclining to assent rather than dissent, especially when his side face is newly downed and his upper lip is first embrowned with the purple lights of youth, and on his cheek abound, so that he's like the full moon sound. And how goodly is the saying of Abu Taman. The slanderer said, There's hair upon his cheek. Quoth I, Exceed not that's no blemish there. What he could bear that hailing of his hips and the pearl beads shaded by mustachio hair? And Rose swore solemn holiest oath that is, from the fair cheek she nevermore would fare. I spoke with eyelids without need of speech, and they who answered me his eyebrow were. He's even fairer than thou knewest him, and cheek down guards from all would overdare. Brighter and sweeter now are grown his charms, since down robes, lip, and cheeks before were bare. And those who blame me for my love of him, when him they mention, say of him, thy fair. And quoth Al-Hariya, and quoth excellently well. My censors say, What means this pine for him, seeing that the flowing hair on cheeks a-flowing? I say, by Allah, and ye deem I dote, look at the truth in those that fine eyes are showing. But for the down that veils his cheek and chin, his brow had dazed all eyes, no sight allowing. And whoso sojourns in a growthless land, how shall he move from land's fair growths a-growing? And quoth another, My blamer say of me, he is consoled, and lie. No consolation comes to those who pine and sigh. I had no solace when rose bloomed long on cheek, now basil blooms thereon, and now consoled am I. And again, Slim-waisted one whose looks would down of cheek, in slaughtering mankind each other hurdle. When the narcissus blade he sheddeth blood, the baldric of whose sheath is freshly myrtled. And again, Not with his must I drink, but verily, those curls turn manly heads like newest wine. Each of his beauties envies each and all, would be this silky down on side face lean. Such are the excellencies of the youth which women do not own, and they more than suffice to give those the preference over these. She replied, Allah give thee health. Verily thou hast imposed the debate upon thyself, and thou hast spoken and hast not stinted, and hast brought proofs to support every assertion. But now is the truth become manifest, so swerve thou not from the paths thereof, and if thou be not content with the summary of evidence, I will set before thee in fullest detail. Allah upon thee, where is the youth beside the girl, and who shall compare kid and wild cow? The girl is soft of speech, fair of form, like a branch of basil, with teeth like chamomile petals, and hair like halters wherefrom to hang hearts. Her cheeks are like blood-red anemones, and her face like a pippin. She hath lips like wine, and breasts like pomegranates twain, and a shape supple as a rattan cane. Her body is well formed, and with sloping shoulders dight. She hath a nose like the edge of a sword shining bright, and a forehead brilliant white, and eyebrows white unite, and eyes strained by nature's hand black as night. If she speak, fresh young pearls are scattered from her mouth forthright, and all hearts are ravished by the daintiness of her sprite. When she smileth, thou wouldest ween the moon shone out her lips between, and when she sees thee, sword blades flash from the babes of her eyes. In her, all beauties to consolation come, and she is the center of attraction to traveler and stay at home. She hath 2 lips of cremousy, than cream smoother, and of taste than sweeter honey. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 422nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the preacher woman thus pursed her theme and the praise of fair maids. She hath 2 lips of cremousy, than cream sweeter, and then honey sweeter, adding, and she hath a bosom, as it were away 2 hills, between which are a pair of breasts, likewise a stomach, right smooth flanks, soft as the palm smath, and creased with folds and dimples which overlap one another, and liberal thighs, which like columns of pearl arise, and back parts, which billow and beat together like seas of glass, or mountains of glands, and 2 feet and hands of gracious mold, like unto ingots of virgin gold. So, O miserable, where are mortal men beside the jinn? Knowest thou not the puissant prince and potent kings before women ever humbly bend, and on them for delight depend? Verily they may say, We rule over necks and rob hearts. These women, how many a rich man have they not paupered, and how many a powerful man have they not prostrated, and how many a superior man have they not enslaved? Indeed, they seduce the sage, and send the saint to shame, and bring the wealthy to want, and plunge the fortune-favored into penury. Yet, for all this, the wise but redouble in affection of them and honor, nor do they count this oppression or dishonor. How many a man for them hath offered his Maker, and called down on himself the wrath of his father and mother? And all this because of the conquest of their love over hearts. Knowest thou not, O wretched one, that for them are built pavilions, and slave girls are for sale? That for them tear floods rail, and for them are collected jewels of price, and ambergris, and musk odoriferous, and armies are arrayed, and pleasaunce is made, and wealth heaped up, and smitten off is many a head. And indeed, he spoke sooth in the words, Whoso saith the world mean woman. Now, as for thy citation from the holy traditions, it is an argument against thee, and not for thee, and that the prophet, whom Allah bless and preserve, compareth the beardless with the black-eyed girls of paradise. Now, doubtless the subject of comparison is worthier than the object therewith compared, so unless women be the worthier and the goodlier, wherefore should other than they be likened to them? As for thy saying that girls are likened to boys, the case is not so, but the contrary. Boys are likened to girls. For folks say, Yonder boy is like a girl. As for what proof thou quotest from the poets, the verses were the product of a complexion unnatural in this respect. And as for the habitual Sodomites and the Cadamites, offenders against religion, Almighty Allah hath condemned them in his holy book, wherein he denounced their filthy practices, saying, Do ye approach unto the males among mankind, and leave your wives which your Lord hath created for you? Surely ye are a people who transgress. These it is that liken girls to boys of their exceeding proficiency and ungraciousness, and the inclination to follow the fiend in own lust, so that they say, She is apt for 2 tricks. And these are all wanderers from the way of right and of the righteous. Quoth the chief, Abu Nuwas, Slim waist and boyish wit's delight, wencher as well as sodomite. As for that which thou sayest of the youth's first hair on cheek and lips, and how they add to his beauty and loveliness, by Allah, thou strayest from the straight path of sooth, and sayest that which is other than the truth, for whiskers change the charms of the comely into ugliness. Quoting these couplets. That sprouting hair upon his face took wreck, for love his vengeance all did vainly seek. I see not on his face a sign full genius, except his curls are hue of reek. If so his papers mostly be grimmed, where deemest thou the reed shall draw a streak? If any raise him others fair above, the only proves the judge of wits is weak. And when she ended her verse, she resumed, Laud be to Allah Almighty. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 423rd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the preacher woman ended her verse, she resumed addressing the man, Laud to Allah Almighty! How can it be hid from the text? And to thee that the perfect pleasure is in women, and that abiding pleasures are not to be found but with them, seeing that Allah, extolled and exalted be He, hath promised his prophets and saints black-eyed damsels in paradise, and hath appointed these for a recompense of their goodly works. And had Almighty known that the joy of the Supreme was in the possession of other than women, he had rewarded them therewith and promised it to them. And quoth he, whom Allah bless and preserve, The things I hold dearest of the things of your world are three, women, and perfume, and the solace of my eyes in prayer. Verily, Allah hath appointed boys to serve his prophets and saints in paradise, because paradise is the abode of joy and delight, which could not be complete without the service of youth. But as to the use of them for aught but service, it is hell's putridity, and corruption, and turpitude. How well, saith the poet, Men's turning unto bums of boys is bumptious. Whoso loveth noble women show their own noblesse. How many goodly wights have slept the night enjoying buttocks of boys, and woke at morn in foulest mess, their garments stained by safflower, which is yellow mirrored, their shame proclaiming showing coloring of distress. Who can deny the charge when so bewrayed are they, that e'en by daylight shows the dung upon their dress? What contrast with the man who slept a gladsome night by hoary maid for a glance of mere enchantress? He rises off her barring wholesome bonny scent that fills the house with whiffs of perfumed goodliness. No boy deserved place by side of her to hold, canst even aloes wood with what fills pool of cess. Then said she, O folk, ye have made me to break the bounds of modesty, and the circle of freeborn women, and indulge in idle talk of chambering and wantonness, which beseemeth not people of learning. But the breasts of freeborns are the sculptures of secrets, and such conversations are in confidence. Moreover, actions are according to intentions, and I crave pardon of Allah for myself, and you and all Moslems, seeing that He is the pardoner and the compassionate. Then she held her peace, and thereafter would answer us not. So we went our way, rejoicing, and that we had profited by her contention, and yet sorrowing to part from her. And among the tales they tell is one of Abu Suwayd and the pretty old woman. Quoth Abu Suwayd, I and a company of my friends entered a garden one day to buy somewhat of fruit, and we saw in a corner an old woman who was bright of face, but her head hair was white, and she was combing it with an ivory comb. We stopped before her, yet she paid no heed to us, neither veiled her face. So I said to her, Old woman, wert thou to dye thy hair black, thou wouldst be handsomer than a girl. What hindereth thee from this? And she raised her head towards me. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 424th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Abu Suwayd continued, When I spake these words to the ancient dame, she raised her head towards me, and opening wide her eyes, recited these two couplets. I died what years have died, but this is my staining. Last not, while that of days and I remaining. Days, when beclad in gear of youth I fared, raked fore and aft by men with joy unfeigned. I cried, By Allah, favoured art thou for an old woman! How sincere art thou in thine after-pine for forbidden pleasures, and how false is thy pretence of repentance from frowardness! And another tale is that of the Emir, Ali bin Tahir, and the girl Muunis. Once on a time was displayed for sale to Ali bin Mohammed bin Abdullah bin Tahir a slave girl called Muunis, who was superior to her fellows in beauty and breeding, and to boot an accomplished poetress, and he asked her of her name. Replied she, Allah advance the Emir, my name is Muunis. Now he knew this before, so he bowed his head a while, then raising her eyes to him, recited this verse. What sayest of one by a sickness caught for the love of thy love till he waxed distraught? Answered she, Allah exalt the Emir, and recited this verse in reply. If we saw a lover whose pains as he ought, we would grant him all favours he sought. She pleased him, so he bought her for 70,000 dirhams, and begat on her Obad Allah bin Mohammed, afterwards Minister of Police. And we are told by Abu Anya a tale of Ali the Cairene and the haunted house in Baghdad. There was once, in the city of Cairo, a merchant who had great store of monies and bullion, gems and jewels, and lands and houses beyond count, and his name was Hassan the jeweler, the Baghdad man. Furthermore, Allah had blessed him with a son of perfect beauty and brilliancy, a rosy-cheeked, fair of face, and well-figured, whom he named Ali of Cairo, and had taught him the Quran and science and elocution and other branches of polite education, till he became proficient in all manner of knowledge. He was under his father's hand in trade, but after a while Hassan fell sick, and his sickness grew upon him, till he made sure of death. So he called his son to him, and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of these tales until it be morrow.